Before we get to Fear Street, I do got to get one thing out of the way. I edited the Rock Dog 2 video earlier this morning.
Yeah.
And I forgot to ask you what your grade was for the movie.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh.
It slipped both of our minds because
Oh.
by the time we got to the end of that review, we were sweating bullets.
Which we're about to do now.
Yeah,
again.
which we are definitely gonna. It gets really hot in here. And so I think both of us were like, sweet, we've talked about Rock Dog 2 long enough. Let's go upstairs and cool off. I forgot to ask you what I'm sure high grade
yeah.
Rock Dog 2,
Yeah.
Rock Around the Park.
Dude, what did you give it?
Oh, no, you can't cheat.
I'm not gonna cheat. I was just thinking,
What if I
like...
tricked you and went B minus?
No, I know that's not right.
I gave it a D.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. A D minus.
Yeah.
D minus was definitely what I was thinking.
So what grade would you give this one?
C plus.
Yeah, see now
C plus.
now I don't know where else you go in this review, since this is the first time we just got the grades out of the way early.
Okay, well that's it for us.
I'll save mine. I'll save mine for the end. I think I read. So here's. There's been a few R.L. Stines that I've read. Like, not a lot, but a handful. And whenever I think about Fear Street, I think back to the first time I had heard of it, which was 5th grade, and we would get. The teacher would give us, like, a list of books from this book club, and we could all order from it, and they'd deliver it to us in school. And I went to a religious school, so on that list was the Fear Street books, and the teacher said you guys can order anything but Fear Street. And it was the cover. I still remember this cover. I remember the cover more than I do the book. The cover that had the cheerleader on it, and that just made me want to order the book.
Right, yeah.
So I grew up watching slasher movies. My parents didn't care. So I
Right.
go home, Mom, will you order this for me? And I'm sure I read it, but I don't remember that much about it.
Right on.
So going into this and then watching this, I'm watching it like, I don't know how this compares to the book series, to be perfectly honest. There was a lot of stuff happening in it, and different characters being mentioned, and different murder scenes from the past, and I could be wrong, but I took that as like, okay, maybe that's a reference to something from the book. This is taking place in 1994, in which there is a witch that's causing ordinary people and teenagers to turn into masked slasher movie villains, essentially. And I kind of like the opening scene where it's taking place in the mall, and dude suddenly puts on a skeleton mask and starts hunting down the girl working at B. Dalton.
Yeah.
And the slow motion that they do in her death scene, and the massive orchestra that's going along with
Yeah.
it. I kind of liked that, because it was like this huge movie orchestra with what would normally be playing in a Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
That's happening in this slasher at the beginning of this slasher.
Conducted by John Williams.
Yeah, it sounded like a John Williams score being played over this. The thing is, though, is after that, the musical score does not let up in this movie.
Right.
Were you noticing that too? There'd be like dialogue going on where it's like a normal conversation in a hospital, but the soundtrack is making you think it's a chase sequence.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the
soundtrack?
Yeah.
Like all the songs on the
Yes.
soundtrack? Yeah, it's taking place in 94, so...
Friggin' love the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's a good soundtrack. It gets... it kind of drops off a little after a while, but it bombards you with it pretty hardcore in the first act of this movie, right down to the point to where they'll get on the bus, there's a song playing, and then a character will put on their headphones and start listening to another song.
Yeah.
It's like doubling its soundtrack on top of each other,
Yeah.
and then, I don't know, they'll have just like a minor conversation, and this giant sweeping movie orchestra will start playing. I kind of like some of the random side characters in this, where it's a rambunctious high school. So at the beginning, the principal is out giving a speech to the students about the kid who died in this murder spree that happened. And the principal's like, all right, there's going to be a candlelight vigil tonight in memory of those that we lost. Attendance is mandatory. The audience is just, boo! And then the craziness on the bus.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, with the worst bus driver ever.
Oh, that bus driver didn't give a shit. Like, the bus driver on Beavis and Butthead gave more of a shit when Mr. Van Driesen flew through the window and on their class trip. This guy, there's a car of, like, the jocks chasing the bus behind him, in which it's already practically a riot inside of the bus. Then, like, the girl kicks the back door open. Driver doesn't notice shit. She's like chucking like a cooler on him, causes a car accident in which that car just stays there through the whole movie, crashed into the
tree.
No wonder there's killers in this town.
They just go unchecked. Everything just goes unchecked in this town. So yeah, go on a killing spree. Who's gonna stop you? Definitely not the cops.
Yeah. And I don't know, but by and large, our main characters in this movie, I didn't really give a shit about any of them, to be perfectly honest. I didn't, man. Like, our main girl, who it's like, oh, you know, she's a loner, and she's like all cynical 90s downer, because, like, you know, this is the case when they're like just laying on their back with their head like in the aisle on the school bus, and just pulls out drumsticks out of nowhere. You're sick because you're a drummer. You're like, oh, sweet, she's a drummer. I'm like, well, don't be so sure. This is a high school movie. Right. She might not be a drummer. Right. She could just simply be a loner. And
literally not a single scene with her and drums, just drumsticks. Drumsticks.
I'm like, no wonder you're arguing with your ex-girlfriend, because you're just coming across like a total Buzz Killington in the first two acts of the story. I say that well aware of the fact that this movie is getting really good reviews and has very positive feedback, so the irony is not lost on me that I'm being kind of a Buzz Killington about this film, because I didn't love it. And yeah, it was funny when there was the make-out scene going on in the bathroom with her and her girlfriend. Jerrid's sitting there and just goes, I'm still not buying she's a drummer. It didn't help either that the death scenes in the movie are very standard. Yeah. The movie is an R. Yeah. It is bloody. Yeah. And it is kind of cool that there's this R-rated movie version of the Fear Street series. But most death scenes in it are nothing much than just your typical kind of somebody gets stabbed. There's a couple of cool ones towards the end. Yeah. And in the last 15 minutes, I was liking that there were some characters that would straight up get pretty horrifically killed that I wasn't expecting to die in this movie. Yeah. And I liked that. I was like, oh, this kind of brought me back into it. What was then pulling me out of it was that this movie felt like it wouldn't end. There were so many times in this. There's a big sequence in a high school where they're battling these monsters. I thought the movie was about over with when they're luring these monsters into this trap and an explosion happens. Yeah. This thing still has like a half hour, 40 minutes after that. There's another big sequence in a grocery store, and then it still goes on a little bit after that, and I thought it would have ended in a good place where there's a character on a phone and something surprising happens, but then it still kind of keeps going for another 5 minutes after that. I was watching it restless, going, this movie is already too long for the kind of movie it is. It's about an hour 47, hour 50 minutes. Yeah. And the last 20 minutes, I was going, please end, please. Right. I really, for something that's a trilogy and has 2 more parts after that, this isn't even over, and I've stopped caring, really. Right. But I'll still watch the other one. The other one's in the 70s. Maybe it'll be better.
I mean, like I said, I loved the soundtrack for this only because of the nostalgia. I mean, you know, so the movie takes place in 1994. Yeah. And all of these songs are from that, like, early 90s and a lot of it's grunge and whatnot, and I'm just like, yeah.
Yes, but I've already seen Cowboy Junkies use this year much better in an episode of 911 Lone Star. Lloyd will vouch for me on that. Yeah, the soundtrack is fine, even though a lot of times, honestly, I kept forgetting that this was set in 1994.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's certainly a lot of old stores, and you see things like a Nintendo in the background. He's playing Castlevania 4, everything on the soundtrack.
He's chatting on AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah, but the way it's shot and the way that it's written, it definitely feels like something that's made within the last 5 years.
True. True.
So I kind of, towards the end when I was really checking out of this, I was like, that phone right there. Right. Yeah, it's like 1994. Okay. But I didn't think that this was a bad movie. I adore slasher movies. I love slasher movies. So anytime that there is a new slasher movie, I'll appreciate just the fact that we got a new slasher movie.
Sure.
And even this, because a lot of people really seem to like this movie, and I know critics like it a lot. I don't think the acting is bad in the movie. It's not that I think it's like a terribly written movie by any means. I think the characters are just kind of standard. I don't think they're particularly likable, but I wasn't annoyed by a lot of them. They were just kind of there.
Yeah.
And the death scenes didn't really boost that up for me. I've seen plenty of slasher...
Pretty forgettable.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of slasher movies where maybe I'm not warming up to characters necessarily, but the death scenes might really be something original. Right. And maybe there'll be like a good musical score or something like that. This, I don't know. It was all just kind of there for me, going in one ear and out the other.
Well, and I'll be honest. So it ended with... a preview of the next one, and I'm gonna be honest, it gave me so much of a Friday the 13th vibe that I was just kind of like, well, I'm honestly not that optimistic for the next one.
I love Friday the 13th.
Well, yeah, so do I, but it's like if I want to watch Friday the 13th, I'll watch Friday the 13th.
Well, yeah, but I love the knockoffs too. Sleepaway Camp, Cheerleader Camp, all of those post Friday the 13th slasher movies that came out. Those I think are a lot of fun too. Especially like during that time period where I'd just be going to the video store, and if like a title or box cover stuck out to me for like a slasher movie, that thing was going home with me that night. Like, Nail Gun Massacre, all right. Regretted that one when I watched it that night. That was how I discovered Sleepaway Camp.
Honestly, I had a lot of those, a lot of that the same way, you know. Yeah. I'd rent movies from this grocery store. Shop and Save. Our Shop and Save in Jerseyville had a movie rental section, and I would like just browse that, and same thing. And if the cover looked cool, I'd be like, all right.
Yeah, that was always fun. I liked watching a lot of those knockoffs where there'd be like trends where, you know, after Halloween we get Friday the 13th, then Friday the 13th comes out, so there's a lot of Friday the 13th knockoffs. Even the sex comedies, like, you know, post Porky's. I like Porky's, but I love movies like Screwballs and Hots and School Spirit and all of those. And now with this movie, it feels like we're kind of in that too, where this is very, 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 very post Stranger Things. It's definitely geared towards the same audience.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm actually right there with you. Like when we were talking about Rock Dog at the beginning, and I said, no, you can't cheat, give it the same grade as me. I'm giving this the same grade that you gave. I'm also giving it a C+. But hey, you know, maybe I'll like the ones after this a lot better. Is there anything else you can think of about the movie?
No, not really.
Yeah.
let's get this AC back on so we can stop sweating like a sauna. It's like a sauna in here.
That's because we have finally figured out a way to watch and review movies on the internet to be a good weight loss exercise. Like in the old cartoons, where like a fat guy would get into the sauna, then come out and he's like rail thin, except his head's still really big. He's wearing like a bowler hat for some reason.
We should bring towels the next time.
We should. Oh, yeah. So he'd be like, Rock Dog. Like, dude, did I miss anything? Did I miss the review?
Carl.
Take care.